I'm here with my friend, my Twitter friend, Ruben Sanchez, formerly of United Airlines. And before we get to the tweets that got you fired, Ruben, why don't you describe who you are?
I am 52 years old. I was a United flight attendant for, 28 years. It was my first real job I got after I graduated from the University of Southern California in 1994. At the time, I was working at an outplacement firm in Los Angeles right after graduation. And I've always wanted to go to United because I was born in Chicago. My dad worked for an airline, and my grandparents, they lived in the same house in Chicago my whole life. So ever since I was a little kid, whenever I saw a United airplane, it was grandma's house. Because to me, my grandparents' house, as being the oldest grandchild, uh, you know, my grandparents' house was my personal Disneyland. It was my happiest place on earth for me. Um, I joined the military after September 11th. I had a very comfortable life.
In the Air Force, right?
Yeah, I started in the Air Force Reserves. And then I wanted to go to officer school, and I was too old when I joined the Air Force to go. I went before the board twice, and they wouldn't waive my age, but the Army would. I was about 36 at the time, and the Army would waive it to 40. So I left the Air Force Reserves, went to the Army, and I guess God didn't have that in my plans because I went to officer school three times. Three times I flunked out of land navigation or whatever. So it just wasn't meant to be. And so I stayed enlisted and I enjoyed it. But then I moved to Alaska, and I went back to the Air Force. So now I'm in the Air National Guard. I'm back in the blue.
And so this is United Airlines, and this is one of the many stories we've had of employees sending something out on Twitter and getting fired for it. But your story is especially weird because it was a passenger that overheard a private conversation, and then they looked through your entire Twitter feed. So anyway, could you tell the story of how they started, even United started looking at your Twitter feed?
I was working at an all-night flight from Los Angeles to Cleveland. And before that, I'll have an energy
Popular
drink.
route.
I'm sorry?
Popular route.
Yeah. It was an 11 p.m. departure. So I had a Monster, and that usually lasted for like 3 hours. And a flight from LA to Cleveland's about 4.5 hours. Well, we were delayed, and I was not going to have another energy drink. So as the sun's coming up and we still have like 2.5 hours left in the flight, I tell the purser who I'm working with in first class, hey, so why were you gone from work? Because you told me this is your first flight in a couple of weeks. He says, well, my father converted to Catholicism and we were at a pilgrimage in Italy. I said, fantastic. I'm Roman Catholic. And we start talking about, Catholic teaching and, how I converted back to Catholic Church. Because I was a Protestant when I was at USC. I was, born again evangelical, left the Catholic Church. I thought it was, we worship Mary. I believed all those stereotypes. But then thanks to Opus Dei in Los Angeles, I went back to the church.
Well, good choice, but go ahead.
And I said, it was May 30th, okay, 2023. And, it's the day before Pride Month. I said, as Catholics, we're not supposed to be affirming, celebrating, anything that has to do with pride.
And you were saying that because United has a big Pride celebration, I understand.
Yes, they do. And they have rainbows everywhere. They have people coming up to you to put rainbows on your uniform as you're walking down the concourse. At least they do in Los Angeles, where I was based in Los Angeles.
Oh, I've been to that one.
So they'll ask you, do you want to put rainbows, and they have like drag queens doing, being DJs at all. The music is great. I'm not going to lie. I love the music. So we're talking about, we don't do that. Men don't give birth and women don't have penises, and the Catholic Church should never, ever be, celebrating a same-sex wedding. It's a sacrament, and the church is very particular about men and women. That's what marriage is, nothing else. Mm-hmm. Apparently, a passenger, according to the United complaint, overheard me say that, and they said that
where the passenger was sitting in relation to you. When I read about this, I'm always trying to get the logistics here. Was he in the front row of first class?
He claims to be in first class. I was working in first class. We were having this discussion in the galley by that door that you board at. And it was the middle of the night. All the shades are down. And apparently he claims he overheard me say that, and that I was saying I was transphobic, and that I said I hate all Black people. That's what was in the letter. So he had sent, United showed me the tweet that he had sent to United saying that I hate all Black people and that I am proudly anti-trans.
And he gave your name?
Yes, he
Tweet?
spelled it right. Mhm.
And it was directed to United's Twitter account.
Yeah, at United. That's who it was sent to. Because I saw it. I saw it in my investigation. And I wear a name badge that says Ruben, so I mean, whatever, on my apron. So I get called in, and the supervisor who is conducting the investigation, I mean, he's either a very old Gen Z or a very young millennial. Okay, so I've probably been at United longer than he's been alive. He did tell me, but we're investigating this. I was being interrogated by the Office of Harassment and Discrimination. This middle-aged lady who wanted to
Wow.
interrogate me about those comments I made. Apparently, they showed me that they had interrogated the crew, the three flight attendants I was working with, and some of the passengers that they had reached out to had claimed. They all said they didn't hear me say anything like that. I did nothing out of the ordinary. And someone said, "Why are you contacting me? We know nothing about this." So
Did they
Jordan,
talk to the attendant you were specifically having the conversation with?
oh yeah. And he said the same thing. Ruben never said anything like that. We didn't
Yeah.
talk about people. We didn't talk about anti-trans. And I mentioned the transgender thing after I said the men don't give birth and women don't have penises, because I had read that book. I was really impressed by this author named Dr. Ryan T. Anderson. I
Mhm.
had been following him during the same-sex marriage debates, and I was reading his stuff, and I was always pro same-sex marriage, and then I was reading him. It's like he was starting to make me change my mind a little. And then he wrote a
Wow.
book.
Impressive.
Yeah, he's great. And then he wrote a book called When Harry Became Sally.
Which was
And
banned from Amazon, right?
yes, correct. Yeah.
What
And
a
so I said, and I told this flight attendant I was talking to, whose dad just converted to Catholicism, "Hey, you know what? He says how it's wrong, but we still love people where they're at because God loves us where we're at. And I have never treated any transgender coworker or passenger with any disrespect or anything like that." And
Mhm.
Ryan basically affirmed that. And we mentioned that. So I have to throw that in there, that I have never been disrespectful. I have never made fun of trans people, nothing like that.
Mhm.
So I tell that to the investigator from the Department of Civil Rights, Corporate Security's, discrimination and harassment. She wasn't very pleasant, and after she left, I went back to the supervisor. He says, "Well, since the customer used Twitter, we're looking at your Twitter account, and it shows that you opened it in January of 2010, so that's subject to scrutiny." I said, "Are you serious? You're going to look through all that?" So then he
Wait a second, but this guy, sorry to interrupt you, but this guy identifies you by the flight number and that it only has your first name on your uniform. So he knows your name is Ruben and you're on this flight. So there's no reason to think he would have seen your tweets anyway, right?
right. But
Still
because
doesn't know your Twitter handle.
well, okay. On the flight, when the flight attendant I was talking to, we had exchanged Twitter handles on the airplane. "Oh, when we land and we get to the hotel, let's go to Twitter. What's your handle?" We did have that conversation. We did meet. We did
And you
mention
think the passenger, did he hear?
there's no other way he could have, figured
So
that
he
out.
identified you by your Twitter handle.
Well, he knew Ruben. He said Ruben, and then he put the Twitter. This is his Twitter handle, and that's another thing. In the
Wow,
investment,
seems like kind of an invasion of your privacy.
yeah, United didn't care because I brought that up too. I brought all this up. He goes, "Yeah, you're subject to all your tweets from our subject." I don't know if he actually went through all of them, but he said they were subject. One of them was, first of all, he didn't know who Joan Rivers or Elizabeth Taylor were, because I had a tweet about Joan Rivers making a fat joke. And he said I was disrespectful to people of size. Every time I said the word obesity or fat, he kept interrupting me saying, "Passengers of size, people of size."
Wow.
And there was a tweet that I had retweeted of you.
Excellent.
Do you
And that got you in trouble.
No. Do
Okay.
you remember that tweet you said? Remember when the NAACP said they were banning trips to Florida because it's so dangerous for African Americans because of Ron DeSantis? And then you had quoted, and the tips of the people working at those resorts went down by 0. Okay, that was funny. I was racially insensitive. How dare I be so racist? Is what he called me. I said that was funny. And then
There
There was
are
another
articles about that, by the way. There are articles by Black people on Black websites about how Black people don't tip. But go ahead.
and another tweet that I thought was hilarious. Every time I share people a tweet, they laugh. It was a comment about Chris Christie, and I had said Chris Christie, comma 2024 ... LBS. Well, that was fat shaming. That was, I was being disrespectful to somebody's weight. And I said, Chris Christie makes fun of his weight.
Yeah.
This is a joke. Basically, Ann, I was spending that whole investigation explaining jokes. Now, look, when I was in the
that's
Army,
always fun.
when I was in the Army, I was in combat arms. Okay. My combat arms, we only worked with men. So when I go out in the field with just men, you know how we talk. And my audience in social media is mostly veterans. And mostly men. So that's my audience. That's how I talk. I do not talk that way on the airplane. I do not talk that way outside. I know I can read the room.
Right.
I need to be constantly explaining joke after joke. I go, that's a joke. No, that's a joke. I had to explain myself all the time.
You can watch complete episodes of Unsafe with Ann Coulter by subscribing to anncoulter.substack.com. That's anncoulter.substack.com. You can also listen to complete episodes for free at Ricochet.com. Choose Unsafe from the pull-down menu at the top of the page. That's Ricochet.com, your home for civil center right conversation on the web.